Okay, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Future of Work Now session at Digital DNA. Ulster University Business School is the HE partner with Digital DNA, so please stay tuned as we have some excellent opportunities that we hopefully will be allowed to tell you about. Delighted that we have on our panel today. One panel member is still to join us. Anne McGregor, have you managed to log in yet? Okay, no, we'll wait for Anne if she joins, so no worries. Anne McGregor is the Chief Executive of the Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce. We are delighted to have joining us today Rosemary Stalker, who is the Chair of Invest Northern Ireland. We also have Andy Jaffrey, who is the head of the Office for Digital Learning in Ulster University. Then we have Nancy Brown, who is a lecturer in the Future of Work in Ulster University. We're also grateful that Keith Farley could join us today. Keith is the Vice President and Managing Director of Alpha Group. And finally, then we have Mark Dowds. Mark Dowds is the Managing Director of Athenas Group, and he is also the TechStart Chair, and he is a co-founder in Ormerbath's tech community, as well as numerous other entrepreneurial ventures. So delighted you could all join us today. Okay, I think Anne McGregor must still be having a few issues joining. So Anne, if you're here, say hello. If not, we'll continue with the session. Okay, we don't have Anne just yet, no problem. Hopefully she'll join us. Okay, we'll go ahead then with our first question, and I'm going to start with Rosemary for the first question then. Okay, the global pandemic has caused monumental changes to the way we all work. But I would like to ask you, what is changing most rapidly in the businesses that your organization works with?
Thank you very much, Shirley. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think you've sort of said it in the question, in that COVID has accelerated the digital revolution. At Invest, we were piloting smart or remote working, but overnight on the first lockdown, we have all staff working remotely and connected to our systems. On day one, the 10K small business grant was announced. We had 70,000 people hitting our website at Northern Ireland NI Business Info. And so people are doing their business digitally. They're absolutely moving online. We've had over 4 million visits basically since February. The number of telephone calls we've had have trebled on our hotline. So traffic is moving from face-to-face to digital. And, you know, we talk about the future of work. I actually think that the future of work is here. We're in it. The market for talent is no longer local, it is global. The moment we can work effectively remotely, then we can work effectively remotely for anyone. Now, that's not to say we, as human beings, need the social interaction, and as we move forward, we'll get the chance to find out what the future balance is going to be. But I do think that we are in the middle of what we've described for years as that future of work. What's happening to our businesses? It sounds very trite, but I think it's a reality. To some degree or other, every business needs to be a digital business, and therefore it needs to have digital capability. So we're entering into a period of massive training and retraining, and looking at the supply of capability to feed that demand.
Thank you, Rosemary. So excellent. You couldn't have said it better. The future of work is here, and the future of work is here now. I'd like to go over to Keith now. Keith, has anything surprised you about how your business has changed and adapted in recent months?
Yeah, thanks for that. The big thing that changed for us, as Rosemary said, just the speed at which things could be done. you could sit and talk about something for weeks or months, and then you get surprised with a pandemic, and everyone can move really quickly when they need to. And so I think that has further impacts to business. And I work for a business that's a large business in the US that would have, all sorts of processes for making decisions. But it's shown us as a large company in the US that we can make really quick decisions as well. And I hope that that's a lasting effect that we have coming out of this, is that companies are taught that we are more nimble than maybe we thought we were. The company here that we've created in Northern Ireland, Aflac Northern Ireland, was already a pretty small and nimble company. But it's amazing for me to see how quickly, businesses have changed their business model, and all across the province here in Northern Ireland. You've seen folks that were making packaging for fast food that are now in PPE. You've seen restaurants, turn into takeaway, and the restaurant near me has a hatch where you can get a pint of Guinness to go with the top on it, and they did that 2 weeks into the pandemic in March and April. So I think it's just amazing how this sort of has jump-started some creativity and innovation around how things need to get done, in the pandemic. So that's probably been the biggest surprise, is the speed at which everybody could pivot.
Keith, Mark, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what's changed in your business and the companies you work with locally and internationally.
Yeah, thanks, Shirley. I'll build on what Keith said, really. It's like, I remember I was talking to one of our limited partners in the fund, and they were asking, what do you expect over this season? This was at the very beginning of lockdown, the first lockdown. And I was saying, this is going to be a wildly creative season. And they sort of laughed and thinking I was a little bit mad. But what happens, I think, is whenever we have crisis like this, and especially when we're put away and we're not moving around, we get more time to think. And obviously with the change of so many roles and jobs, and folks unfortunately losing so many roles, they're also coming back to think, okay, what are they doing in life? Is what they're doing meaningful? And they're suddenly realizing, well, maybe working for a larger company, and maybe it's not as secure as I thought. Maybe there's opportunity to step out and do something new. So we have seen, certainly at Alphamus, we've seen a new surge of creativity and startups that we're investing in. And in the venture space, if anything, it's got hot. It's got really, really busy, more than it was. So it's very competitive. So there's signs of that which are phenomenal for our future because of the innovation that bursts from there. And then locally in the UUBS, it's definitely changed, because obviously we have 210 members there, and a lot of people would have been there 3 to 5 days a week. But what we're seeing is now it's up to about 68 people a day again. But what you're finding is that most of the 210 members are participating, but they're only doing 1, 2, or 3 days a week. So folks are getting more comfortable at home, but don't want to be there all of the time. So it's definitely changing the model, and we're still trying to predict, how much and for how long.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, undoubtedly the future of work revolution is a human revolution, and people are meaning on what they're doing and the value they're creating in different ways for the company. Absolutely. I'm now going to get Nancy to pick up on that. So go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yeah. Guess for us, it's been really interesting. I know we have Andy on here, which is brilliant. Andy's team's been fantastic to help us. But I mean, for us, it was really, we needed to start delivering online very quickly, and we needed to be agile and adapt to that and be responsive to our students' needs and understand the students have a lot going on. Some of our students too are full-time in their own business and come to us part-time. So they have all of that. They had homeschooling with their children, working from home creates its own problems. And I think for us, it's been fantastic the way, and to build on what Keith said as well, is the agility of our team and being agile and just getting on with it and willing to make mistakes and willing to try new technologies and go, okay, I didn't get that right, and have patience with ourselves, but also patience with our students, and to encourage our students, okay, turn on your cameras, everyone's got to turn them on, you got to engage, I can't just talk to myself, it'd be very boring. So I think we've had to use the technology in new ways and push ourselves outside our comfort zones, which has been really fantastic for all of us. And I think we're surprised, as Keith said, we're surprised at how good, and as what Rosemary said, actually we've done all right. We're adapting to it. I think we're starting to get used to realize that we've got to get used to change. We've got to get comfortable with change. And we've got to be in tune with our customers and know what's going on and have our finger on the pulse all the time and be having conversations. So we're co-creating, we're not creating in isolation. And I think Ulster University have done that recently. You know, we've worked with Digital DNA in response to COVID to create a new program, which is called Transformation Management in the Digital World. And it's a new program that's starting in January, and that's being delivered in collaboration with Belfast Met. It's been created with Digital DNA. The Department for the Economy is helping fund 100 places on it, realizing people are coming through COVID. They may not have money to reskill, but the importance of reskilling has never been more important than before. And I think we all see that within ourselves, going, right, okay, I have to reskill myself and be comfortable and be vulnerable in that too, and go, okay, you know, we're not good at everything, and that's okay. And I might fumble a little bit when I'm doing my polls and Blackboard, but I'm going to do my polls because it's really important for engagement, you know. And I think we learn by making mistakes. And I know, Mark, you know, with all the startups, that's what we say: get it out there, get to market with your business, make your mistakes, and then improve it. And the university is the same as a business as well.
Thank you, Nancy. Great. Andy, anything when you pick up there on how the university as a whole you think is adapting to these massive changes?
Yes, so the most positive and rapid changes, as Nancy's described and as other colleagues on the panel have described about that creativity and innovation, the university is just like that. And the agility of the organisation to adapt, originally directly in response to the pandemic teaching response in springtime. We were pretty well positioned because we'd invested in infrastructure, particularly in migrating systems to SaaS and managed hosting services over recent years. And also significant digital learning experience. Some people may know we've been delivering fully online distance learning into 48 countries since about 1999. So that set us up very well in terms of our institutional response. So prior to the pandemic, we're pretty mature digital learning infrastructure and had a really good head start. But still, the scale of demand that we saw was extraordinary. Some of our core systems, we were seeing 500 times the traffic through those that we were seeing in this month last year, which brings a lot of attrition when you're working with an organization where there's a lot of differences in the digital skills and capabilities of individuals. But the thing that has surprised me most, I think, is not just adapting to that emergency response, but to take advantage of fully online delivery and not seeing this as an inferior experience to face-to-face. We've numerous case studies for really impressive active learning with really authentic work-based assessment that have been developed in partnership with industry. And guest lectures and really making the most of that digital delivery, allowing people in industry and guest lectures to come in on their own time quickly in an agile way into our students' learning. So I think our team really does believe that digital learning is not inferior to face-to-face, despite what a lot of the media coverage would suggest. And that's one of the most surprising and encouraging things. As we partner with academic colleagues like Nancy, like yourself and others, is that people are being much more thoughtful about how they can adapt and design learning experiences, not to try and replicate what happens in face-to-face, but fully online experiences that best suit that mode of delivery, which has been really encouraging.
Thank you. And we're really all working together that students can have the best experience online, absolutely. So, okay, what this Digital DNA conference has for sure shown us is that there is a bounty of technological innovations that can be leveraged to unleash human potential. So I'd like to ask you, what are the most important skills for your business today and in the future? And I'm going to start with Keith for this question, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Shirley. I would say, and it's worth it's been thrown out a couple times in this session, but I think creativity and agility are going to be the two things that will win the day for sure. I mean, I think even pre-pandemic we would say that, but post-pandemic we definitely would feel that way. As we can automate more and more manual tasks and manual things, you know, the beauty of humans is their ability to co-create, and that's something that we'll always have, hopefully, touch wood, over technology. Once they can do that, then I think we're all doomed. So, but right now, I think that's the big thing, is your ability to look at your business through different eyes, to recreate and reinvent yourself, and to be as agile as possible are really critical. And so I think, you know, even as we look at the education system here, you know, we send people down a road to do one thing and do one thing really well. And, you know, I'm learning that as I have kids in school here. And there's not a whole lot at the school level, and then even coming up, and maybe it changes a little bit at the university. I haven't had experience there, but the ability to do something for a little while and then something else for a little while and then something else. I think that workers of the future will have 5 or 6 different careers, and not all in mechanical engineering or not all in medicine. And even just as an example for us with the Assured Skills program that we ran, we have a medical doctor who joined our group who's now developing software, and we have a professional tennis player who's now developing software. So they're already in their second career, and I think that agility and the view that they bring from the outside from a creative standpoint is completely different than someone that has always grown up wanting to be a software developer. So I think that agility and creativity will be key moving forward.
So great. Okay, Mark, what do you think are the top future skills needed for businesses and entrepreneurial ventures that you're working with to create value in the future?
Surely I would say empathy is probably one of the highest on the roster for that. The reason I say empathy is the awareness of those around you, what it really is like in their shoes, because that draws out a deeper understanding or awareness of really what your customer and potential customer is really looking for. So it's not just playing something trite, but genuinely growing from the inside out on that. I'd also point out towards the emotional resiliency, because I think as we walk into, I think it's a healthy skill no matter what, but as we work to more remote, being very self-aware and of who you are and how you cope, and be able to protect yourself and build yourself up in that way, I think is going to be key for you to be able to be resourceful, and then problem solving. So I think there's so that not just critical thinking, but a problem solving mentality where you're able to look at the world, see it differently, but also have the ability and self motivation to actually go make a difference about it. So I'd say those would probably be the top 3 that I would highlight.
Thank you, Mark. Incredibly important, being able to think quickly in a situation and solve solutions that are benefit for all. So delighted that Anne McGregor has been able to join us. Hi, Anne. So for those who don't know,
apologies.
No problem at all. Because Anne is the Chief Executive of Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce. So Anne, just to bring you into the conversation about what has changed most in the companies that your organization is working with currently at the moment, and maybe what skills do you think are important for the future? Do you want to pick up on that?
Okay, thank you very much. My problem was someone else logged in for me. So in terms of I thought it might be helpful to tell you a bit about Northern Ireland Chamber. So we're a business organisation that champions a prosperous Northern Ireland where all businesses can thrive. And our members are corporates, SMEs, and people that support them, like banks, etc., and universities and councils. And we have Indigenous corporates like Almac and Ulster Carpets, but also inward investors, indeed like AFLAC, so it's good to see you there, Keith, but also Allstate and others. And then the SMEs we work with are focused on growth and scaling and export. So it's quite a range, but it's not focused in one town or city. It's across Northern Ireland, and we help the members by promotion and networking and policy and business growth and export. But we also, as a private sector led organisation, facilitate businesses to share new developments and best practice. So the future of work has been right at the middle of that, because even before COVID, businesses were dealing with the changes in demography and changes in ICT, things like machine learning, the use of big data, etc., globalization, and even climate change. So companies have been working on that for a number of years, and putting into place automation and agile working, etc. You've got Ryobi there in Carrickfergus, who are big in robotics to remove routine, tedious tasks. We've got a simple one like Musgrave Cash and Carry, using contactless customer experience just to serve routine things like coffee. Ulster Carpets have made an awful lot of developments in automation, and it was really around two things. It was about efficiencies in the workplace when there was an inability to get staff, but also in environmental benefits. They by putting in automated dye works, saved 20% of staff time, but also they really reduced their emissions, etc. And then BT have been sharing their approach to work, where agile working and flexible working has really helped diversity and retention. And then Allstate have been doing things like digital transformation to enhance the experience. But that has all been accelerated by COVID, as you can imagine. Suddenly, companies had to not just work at home, but they had to look at the security of working from home. They also had to make sure consumer demands were still being met, and also that they were able to reconfigure their supply chain. Some sectors we've found through that have been very resilient. You know, people like Fujitsu and Teleperformance and Allstate, even people like ourselves, we had already started to think that way, so we were able to respond, as were some of our big companies like Almac and Norbrook, who had opportunities out of this whole piece. But others haven't been able to respond as effectively, and those are the ones that really need to be encouraged to learn from other businesses and what they're doing. We also need to probably think about how we sell the whole concept of automation and artificial intelligence, because people are nervous about it, and I think it's a way of getting rid of people rather than actually looking at new opportunities. So I think all of what I've just said has had impact on the structure of the workforce and the skills that are required. And I know my colleagues here have already probably touched on, I don't want to go into the second question per se, but there's a whole piece around technical skills that we all know about. We are facilitating workshops around the future of skills strategy for, we're just doing it privately, but the Department of the Economy are very interested in it. And Northern Ireland being a place in transition, we're still finding that there's still, we still need to look at the existing workforce and try and help them respond and gear up to the new world of work. We also need to tackle the whole piece around the economically inactive. So we're not totally there where we can only focus on technical skills. That is really important. And we also need to, as someone else I just caught, talk about social and emotional intelligence, ability to make judgments, lead teams, and even the people need to look at themselves. It's not a career now, it's develop skills. I think build your skills, not your resume, is what people need to be thinking around now. But I believe we're in transition rather than there yet.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for sharing with your really in-depth insights into the dynamic challenges that are really facing companies in Northern Ireland today. I was reassured when I read some of the OECD information that says that technologically driven job creation is still expected to outpace any job destruction as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm just going to ask Andy and then Nancy to pick up and what skills they think will be important for the future of work.
I'm really glad that Mark mentioned empathy. I firmly believe that is the most important skill, particularly with the staff that we're working with at the moment. We really have to think a lot about the staff, their position, where they are, and their work environment, their other responsibilities, and provide a service that is empathetic. I think that's vitally important, and those human attributes are something we in the team really value, and it underpins the work we do. I suppose if I think about the colleagues I work with in our team, the wider skills around critical thinking, problem solving, and also systems thinking. We employ people from a vast array of backgrounds, but a consistent theme is about thinking things at a systems level, and I think that's increasingly important with educational technology at the moment. That systems thinking combined with critical evaluation of software. There are numerous software solutions that hit our inboxes on a daily basis, and I think it's really important for us to critically reflect in those and be providing solutions that are appropriate. and work for our academic colleagues. But I really do think those human skills are things that are much more difficult to develop in ourselves and others, and it's something that we actively look for when we are recruiting people into the roles that we supporting academic staff and students, and now more so than ever.
Andy, Nancy, anything you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, well, I'll start, Shirley, with what you said. The World Economic Forum did a recent report, The Future of Jobs, and they said, yes, you know, in 5 years' time, we'll lose 75 million jobs, but we're going to gain 133 million. So cumulatively, we'll have more opportunities. And I think the future of work provides lots of opportunities, and actually it's really exciting because you don't have a career for life anymore. And I think, as my panelists have said, it's about developing your skills. It's about developing yourself. It's about exploring, what are you curious about? What are you interested in? And I think it actually makes your life more fulfilling, because you can do lots of different things, and you can develop your skills in your ongoing progress, I think, you know, for everybody. And I think even as a lecturer, it's brilliant because you're always learning. And I think that's a fantastic opportunity. And when you look at what skills are most important for the future, it really is about those soft skills. You know, it really is about developing yourself and being creative and innovation. And as Andy said, those problem-solving skills. And as Mark said, you know, empathy is so invaluable, so important. We can't have innovation unless we work together, unless we build on each other. You know, working in isolation doesn't encourage innovation. You know, having wild ideas and being open and being curious encourages innovation and creativity. And I think that's really, really important. And engaging with others in your workforce is a fantastic way to develop yourself, but also to learn new things and ask questions. I love asking questions. My students, if any students have joined as well, it's about asking questions. Ask questions of your customers, ask questions of your lecturers, you know, be curious. I think it's a fantastic skill to have, but it makes exciting. I think learning can be exciting and fun, and anyone who's been in my classes knows I try and make it fun and exciting, and I think it's important for everybody that we enjoy what we're doing. It comes across when you enjoy what you're doing, and I think that is important for that lifelong learning, and I think that's really, really important, lifelong learning. And I know Brene Brown talks about vulnerability, and she's done a lot of studies about vulnerability and the importance of being vulnerable. And I think leadership is important, but being a vulnerable leader. And I think not having all the answers, but going to our teams and saying, right, guys, here's some questions we need to answer. Let's collectively answer these questions and say, do you know what, where are we? And then we're taking everybody on the journey, but we're also leveraging all the skills of our team members, which I think is just so powerful. You know, it's not down to the leader now to go, right, you have to drive this organization. It's everyone within the organization that drives it. And when we all drive together collectively, we actually have a huge opportunity to gain competitive advantage and to really push ourselves forward as an organization and as a wider Northern Ireland and as a wider world. Do you know, it's fantastic to think. And we're not going to make judgments because we're going to have empathy, as Mark said, but we're going to bring everybody along and go, right, let's all develop together. I just think it's a huge opportunity for us.
Say that's excellent. So, and Nancy, yourself, you're incredibly inspirational. I think it's well recognized now that Gen Z has maybe an average of 17 different jobs during their working life. Nancy yourself, for those who didn't notice, was previously a dancer in New York City. So I'm delighted that she's now living in Northern Ireland, and I'm delighted that we have a really international panel with us today. So I'm going to ask I'll start with Rosemarie for this next question then is how do you think Northern Ireland is doing compared to other developed regions in the world in preparing future generations for the future of work in a post-COVID era?
Thanks, Shirley. It was interesting hearing. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
I think it was fascinating hearing what some of the other panel members have said, because the amount of alignment in terms of the priority qualities that they're looking for from future employees. And it's interesting, I did an exercise just over a year ago, in fact, nearly 2 years ago now, with an employer from every one of the major sectors in Northern Ireland. And the list of things that they were looking for in terms of employability, the so-called soft stuff, had all of the agility, creativity, empathy, emotional resilience, collaborative. They were all there. And these are the things that hopefully machines can't replace. And if you go back maybe even 50, 100 years, the words may be slightly different, but the intent of what a good employee and the sort of qualities we're looking for haven't truly fundamentally changed. Now, so back to the question that you're asking me, Shirley. Northern Ireland has got a great track record in attracting investment and business, and a lot of it's to do with the quality of the research and the third level capabilities that we have. And in the past, we all know that education has been the ticket out of poverty. Our last skills barometer data, what we're seeing is our education system, unfortunately, maintains the disadvantage. Those kids on free school meals still do less well in their GCSE performance. We still have that attainment gap, and sadly, it's been in existence for 20 odd years. One would think that technology will provide the opportunity to level that playing field, but the data is emerging that the COVID acceleration of the digital revolution is actually expanding the digital inequality gap. Given that Northern Ireland's biggest even asset is our people, we need to ensure that we find ways to utilize all the talent and capability in Northern Ireland. A recent University of Ulster Economic Policy Unit review on international competitiveness, Northern Ireland's international competitiveness has continued to decline versus other countries. In some areas we've improved, but in other areas it's not that we have somehow failed, it's just that other countries are improving faster than us. And the specific areas are things like our capability in science among all of our secondary education, particularly 15-year-olds. Our proficiency in maths, and that's at all levels. And just building on the last speaker, our participation in lifelong learning and our participation in early years development and our activities around innovation. Now, that might be shocking for some of you. If it's nothing else, it should be a way aspirations here to increase and improve our global competitiveness, because it's essential to improving and creating a more prosperous, inclusive economy that works for everyone in Northern Ireland. And I think the secret lies in education and how we engage with education. So that's the reason why just over a year ago, I founded Foresee Your Future, to inspire and encourage 13-year-olds before they make their GCSE choices, before they think that they're not good enough, to link them and inspire them and make them aware of their inherent capability, because we need all of that to be the economy that we could be in Northern Ireland.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Incredibly work by Richard Johnson in the UUEPC in citing those economic indicators on where we are at the moment and the importance of education in unlocking the key, okay, and helping people to actually progress.
One final little thing, and it hasn't come out as much, but I really liked the early comments about the speed and the agility. The other thing we're seeing in this sort of living with COVID and how we rebuild our society and economy is the working together. So what we've seen, I mean, and I think Anne's alluded to some of it, but what we're seeing is unprecedented collaboration between the departments, the businesses, organizations trying to do the right thing here. And there's some exciting initiatives coming out in the skills arena. But I think these things have to involve all of us.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you. Great. So I'm just going to hand over to Andy next. He'll talk to you a little bit about some of the work that he's doing and his team within the university to help maximize the opportunities for every single one of our students.
Okay, yeah. So you were linking that question into that about how Northern Ireland's doing globally. So Ulster University was selected by one of our partners as being institutionally ready for a predictive learning analytics solution, and we established a pilot to help that organisation look at their predictive model and apply it to a UK and EU context. And that was very encouraging for us as an institution, because we were recognised as having agility to be able to establish that partnership, and we were the first EU institution to launch that. It was a predictive learning analytics solution that helped identify at-risk students. So we had a 200 data points about each individual student, and took an historical model of 5 years of student data with known student outcomes. We worked with our partners to develop this random forest algorithm, which compared a current individual student against similar students in that historical cohort, with about 10 million data points of comparison. And that predictive model was designed to assign a predictive percentage of the student's likelihood of achieving 50% or more in the course, which fed into our institutional retention strategies and overall well-being of our students, allowing early intervention. That's one of a number of examples where I'm going to tell a positive story about Ulster University, because it is institutionally ready and as an organizational culture where our technology partners can work with us on these sorts of projects. And it's been a really rewarding project to be a part of, to look at models that were designed in a US context and how they're applied to a regional university in our region. But more generally, just thinking about how Northern Ireland sits, I'm really, really hopeful and encouraged by the students that I see and work with on a daily basis. We get many of them through our organisation as placement students, and indeed the commitment of our academic colleagues. And I really do believe that our graduates are leaving Ulster University with that set of graduate attributes that do fully prepare our students for the future work as it's being described. And the enthusiasm of working with young people and seeing their passion and seeing those young people's careers develop, with some exceptional local case studies through our own placement students is really encouraging and a really positive story.
Thank you, Andy. That's an excellent exemplar of a world-leading big data analytics solution that's been utilised to really help track our students and enable them all to maximise their potential. So thank you. Keith, how do you think Northern Ireland is doing?
Yeah, so I think the resilience of the place has definitely shown itself the last few months here. I think having a strong infrastructure that's in place has been great for technology companies like ourselves. I do think that, one of my favorite things about Northern Ireland is the size. It's 1.8 million people, so it's big enough to make a big difference, but it's small enough to work together. And even with the 5-party coalition and all the things that we're talking about right now, it is still, everybody knows everybody here or knows somebody who knows everybody. And so you can quickly band together here and get things done, which I think puts Northern Ireland ahead of a lot of people on the map. And I think as we come out of COVID, you could go to a totally decentralized and virtual world, say, I could work for any company, anywhere. I could go to any university in any country. I could do all those things. But I think we're going to miss the co-creativity and the collaboration. That's going to become really important for people to get back to how we work together as a community. I do think that Northern Ireland is uniquely positioned that way because of its size. It's just big enough, again, to hold a lot of weight, but just small enough to know who the other people are and to make sure that we're all going in the same direction. So from that side, I'm very confident with the future of Northern Ireland coming out of the pandemic.
Thank you, Keith. We really appreciate your confidence in our country. I think it was a previous health minister I used to work with in Northern Ireland said that Northern Ireland is small enough to be agile. Small enough to be agile, but large enough to make an impact. I got there in the end. So I'd like to ask Mark now. What do you think? How do you think Northern Ireland is doing compared to, you worked a lot in the US and Canada yourself, I believe. So
Yeah, I think we're a reasonably confused accent bunch on this call. Yeah, so I spent 18 years away and between the States and Canada. I think we're doing really well when it comes to when I left here 20 odd years ago to go to Canada initially. There was no startup scene here. Well, what we have now is a burgeoning, bunch of like infrastructure between, whether it's Ignite, Techstart, Invest Northern Ireland, and all the various communities that are in all the universities and what's happening at Catalyst. And it's, it's case of same, which is awesome, which you're not seeing in a lot of the other regions. And so what we've got with that is there's access to capital again. And so there's people who are taking more risks and pushing out. And I think we've got a leading edge when it comes to innovation and opportunity here in Northern Ireland. And I think, again, because of that smaller population, is that we all know each other, which also forces that everyone keeps their nose clean, and there's a decent accountability in the midst of that where you don't have in some bigger populations. So I think we're doing well, and we're only at the beginning of that journey, because what we see in other places that have had longer venture investment and so on is that it happens sort of decade on decade. So we're in the first one of those, and the more successful and failed entrepreneurs that we have, we'll just seed that into the future.
Thank you, Mark. So thanks. Anne, do you want to pick up on anything on that?
Yeah, I actually I love Northern Ireland and all the great companies we have. We're working with them day and daily. So Northern Ireland led in the first industrial revolution, and I have no doubts that we will respond for this fourth industrial revolution. There are great things happening. I think we actually need to make the environment slightly more friendly, though. We are taking risks, but we need to take more. We need to look at our processes of, the funding, the projects, because we're always conscious of what the Northern Ireland Audit Office will say in the end, but that's one matter. Also, think our recruitment process and our fair employment legislation is quite limited when you're trying to recruit people for skills. So possibly we need to think about that for the future of work. And then we have this habit of you go to work either straight from school or university, and then you retire at 60. Whereas I do think now with increased flexibility, with increased digital offering, why should you have to retire? Should you be able to not work for 2 or 3 days a week now at home because you're more trusted? That might address some of the skills issues. I also think there's a piece around our relationships as sector, as people in Northern Ireland. When you're looking at change, people get nervous. They want to be involved or not involved, or they want to see the risk with it. So, we do talk about FE, universities, government, but I actually think we need to involve unions in that conversation, because if we're to survive and grow, businesses will change. And we should look at the opportunities together and address the risks together, and I think that will be helpful for the future.
Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you. Nancy, how do you think Northern Ireland is doing as a region in preparing future generations for the new world of work?
Yeah, I think we're getting better. As Mark said, I moved here 17 years ago from New York City, and people say to me, "You're crazy," and I say, Yes, very true. And the scene has completely changed in those 17 years. The things I couldn't get 17 years ago and what I can get now. But I think, Mark, what you said too, we have so much energy, so much innovation. I think from a startup culture, we're miles ahead of other areas. But going back to maybe what Rosemary Ann said, sometimes too, I think organizations get comfortable and don't want to put the pedal down a bit further and let's just go grow at a good pace instead of maybe pushing ourselves a little bit. I think sometimes we can do that. I think collaboration here in Northern Ireland and is amazing. And as Mark said, I love taking students in normal baths because the buzz that's there from the collaboration and businesses working together and sharing and talking and it's just amazing. And big businesses and SMEs and learning from each other and leveraging the skills they have. I just think it's fantastic. Every time I'm in Ormo Baths, Mark, I end up being there for hours because I see someone I need to talk to, or I see somebody else. You know, it's amazing when I'm in there. It's great. I'm actually going to see about if you can get a desk in there, Mark, because it's just fantastic. You know, the buzz and the energy. And I do think there's a great buzz and energy. And what I love here is when I first moved here from New York, people say, you want a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? And I would be like, what? Are we not going to just get down into business? And it was like, no, you need a cuppa before you get started. And it was like, all right, okay, I'll get into this. Let's have a cuppa. So, you know, I think people have time for each other here. And they're willing to, every time I ask someone for something, could they meet with a student entrepreneur? Could they be a guest lecturer in my class? It's very rare people say no. I literally had someone who was going to fly over from London to be a guest speaker in a class. You know, I just, to me, I'm amazed at the giving nature that companies and senior executives have, where if you were in New York, these people, you wouldn't even get through the PA to get to these people. Do you know, we're here? You know, I just think it's absolutely amazing and fantastic. And I think we really have to leverage that and use that. And sometimes we don't like to ask. And as an American, I find I always ask because the worst thing they can say is no. But I think we need to ask a little bit more here sometimes. You know, I don't think we always want to ask because I'm nervous what the outcome might be. And I'm like, no. And I think as well, you know, I've come into the design thinking and I think iterate, make mistakes. You know, I think that's exciting too, to do that now and be comfortable with that and be like, yeah, I'm going to make mistakes. It's okay. And business is going to make mistakes. But I think the collaboration for me too between government and businesses and the universities is just fantastic. You know, I think we could do more of it. 100%, definitely. Sometimes I think we're working in our silos and we're too small. We got to be pulling back together and we go up in our own directions. But in general, I think the collaboration, the willingness to help each other and the startup scene is just phenomenal. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing local businesses have outreach to all over the world. You know, Copeland Gin's a great business that came out of Ulster University. He started the business, Gareth. And now they're you know, all over the world. So I just think we have so many examples of that. And I think one thing we need to work on is celebrating and telling our story, because we're also a bit shy about it. And I think we need to just get a little bit more of like, let's talk about it, because it's awesome, do you know? And when you're at the Invent Awards, you're like, this is awesome. Do you know, when I'm in Ormo Baths, you're like, this is awesome. But again, we keep these things sometimes. We don't want to say too much because, gosh, we don't want to jinx ourselves, and we don't want to, you know, we talk about it too much. It might stop our business from growing. So I just think we need to just embrace it and go, you know what, it's okay to celebrate and to talk about our successes.
Thank you.
Sorry, Shirley, I'm going to say that's the model in which Northern Ireland Chamber and Industry work with. We're 100% funded and supported by our members. Every businesses helping businesses all the way, and even our staff would be sponsored by other businesses. So it means that, and they're committed to helping the Northern Ireland economy grow and improving the economy. So there's great volunteer activity out there. And celebrating it is something we try to do.
Thank you. It's that business support that's actually driving forward the Northern Ireland economy in the future. So we're slightly over time. So I'm going to, absolutely, we need to all be celebrating our successes. I'm going to say thank you very much to Simon Bailey, CEO, King of Digital DNA, for giving us all this opportunity today. Thank you to our amazing panel. Thank you to Anne McGregor, to Rosemary Stocker, to Andy Jaffrey, to Nancy Brown, to Mark Dodds, to Keith Farley. Time is your most important asset. I am so glad that each and every one of you here this afternoon haven't used time for your own gain and competitive advantage to make money for your companies. You've all come together collectively. I know the theme of the conference is Back to the Future Now, but I know collectively today with this conversation, we've taken massive steps forward in improving the educational opportunities for future generations in Northern Ireland. So thank you. If you want to speak to us in Ulster University Business School, engage at ulster.ac.uk, and we'll be over on the Ulster University Business School stand in the expo. So that's a little left-hand button on your screen, okay? So thanks very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.